Alright guys, welcome to another edition of
Captain's Table
From Bow to Stern, and we're sorry we're a couple days late on releasing this, but it's Christmas time.
It is. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
A few days early. Or maybe actually a few days late. Depends on when it comes out.
Right? So on this episode,
we're going to talk about the best Christmas present you could give somebody.
Yes. So you giving it to me?
No.
No.
Oh, I could. I've got one I could give you.
No.
But the best Christmas present that you could give anybody is...
Drum roll. A
boat.
A boat. So, we're going to talk about things you should think about, things you should do when you go to purchase a boat. And hopefully, our next episode will be about us bringing the boat home.
A brand new boat. Well, not brand new. A new to Bow to Stern boat. Yes, right. A new to us boat.
Yes.
It is a Catalina 42 that we are replacing our other Catalina 42 with. So we will tell you more about that as we go, and you'll get to see it in the next video as we bring it up from Wilmington.
Yeah. So
that'll be really fun. That's going to be a Captain Ron trip.
Yes.
We're going to do a few things to it before we leave, before we put it in the water. And then if it's going to happen...
It's going to happen out there.
So let's go.
Huh?
So you're going solo on that one?
No, he's coming with me.
I'm going to go with him this time.
Yep.
I can't send him. I could send you guys again with a heater. We'll tell stories about that later on. About cold deliveries.
Yes. Actually, this would be the first delivery
north
that you and I've done together.
That's right. It will be the first delivery we've done together. Probably the first trip together that hasn't been a rescue of some sort.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know that we've actually sailed together.
So what year is the boat?
It is a 1996.
1996 Catalina
42
Mark II.
3 cabin.
Yep. So it's a 3 cabin layout. How did you find the boat?
I looked online. And when you start looking for boats, there's multiple places that you can look. Yacht World used to be the only place and the primary place. It still is a primary place to look, but there are lots of brokers and brokerage houses that are no longer using Yacht World.
What are they using?
They are using a little bit of everything. Yacht R is one of the new ones that's coming up that's looking to compete with Yacht World. It has a much friendlier front end for the customer. You can see a lot, and the biggest thing with Yacht R is that the ads aren't crazy.
Right.
There's really no ads because it's owned by the brokerage systems.
Okay.
And it's kind of everybody contributes to it. Where Yacht World, you can't get through a Yacht World listing without seeing 3 or 4 or 5 pop-ups, and they truncate the listing. So a lot of brokers aren't doing that.
Okay.
But a Google search for what you're looking for. And the more specific that you can be, the better off. And don't stop at the first page. That's one thing with this, especially since so many brokerage houses now are doing their own website. Me personally, I would skip through the sponsored ones right off the bat.
Right.
And go down 2 or 3 or 4. Look for ones other than Yacht World, and also along with that is boats.com. Yeah,
but it gets dated.
I use Boat Trader.
Boat Trader.
And one of the things that I usually do when I'm setting my filter, I'll start with lowest first.
Right. And
because those are the ones that are kind of like reality boats, and then as you start skimming up, you got a variable to judge by because you've been looking at the worst ones, and now you're judging, or I'm judging, okay, well, this one's a little bit better than this one, but I got less work or more work.
Now you're getting into the spreadsheet of who's got what, and which one what, and value of this and value of that, and that's when it gets crazy.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the websites, one of the things that you can do, which Yacht World is good for, is if you don't know exactly what you want, then it's kind of like car shopping.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know what you want, you got to go to all the car dealerships.
Yeah.
Or you can go to CarMax.
Yep.
And you can walk around CarMax and see just about every car that's out there and look at it and look inside. That's a great place to go to Yacht World, because you can look at the pictures, kind of window shop.
Yep.
And then Yacht R does the same thing. You can pick, because they'll have so many different kinds of boats on there and have good picture arrays of them.
Yeah.
So you can see those and pick those out.
Yeah.
But yeah, shoot, and I guess if you're thinking about buying the boat, the first thing I always ask my clients, and I am a yacht broker, so if you need help with that, there's an ad.
He's your guy.
I can help you with that, buying or selling.
Look in the link below.
There we go. What else is the other part?
Like, follow, subscribe.
Or call me.
Call me. Holla.
What was I even talking about? Oh, what I ask my clients first is, what do you want to use the boat for? I mean, you got to back way up and look at it from the 1,000-foot view and say, okay, what kind of boat do you want? Well, what do you want to use it for? Yeah. Is it a day sailor? Is it a coastal cruiser? Yeah. Is it a liveaboard? Is it an ocean going?
Yeah.
Weekender? How big? Where are you going to sail it?
Yeah, that's the most. Actually, in my opinion, that's the most important question: is what are you going to use the boat for? Because once you know that, that's going to cut that field of boats down to a narrow spectrum.
Yep. By the time you say what you want to use it for and how much you want to spend, your budget, and then you can throw in one or two other little things, whether you want to catch rig or something else, but it really, that narrows it down, like you said, to probably 3-4 boats maybe. Yeah. And then obviously when you go look at pictures of those 3 or 4 boats, one of them you think is ugly, and it's like a car. Nobody's going to buy an ugly boat, at least when they pick his.
No such thing as an ugly boat.
Beauty's in the... Oh, I've seen some ugly ones. Depends on whether you like the ones with no teak or with teak. And that's a... some people will look at those and say, I don't want a Clorox bottle, and other people say, I don't want any wood.
Walk-through transoms.
That's right. Yep. Teak decks.
Yeah.
Those are big questions.
Yeah. No teak decks for me. Thank you. Thank you. That's... So, once you narrow it down that this is the boat you want, and you want to set up to go look at it, right? What's the next step that you should be doing at that point?
Your best bet there, I think, is to really involve a broker if you haven't already.
Okay.
Because you don't want to pick up the phone and start calling on listings if you're working with somebody. Yeah. It's very much like real estate, in that you want your broker with you from day one, helping you look, and let them be the ones that are talking to the broker on the other end or the owner on the other end. That way you don't have to be the one negotiating, and they can normally find out and actually usually get you a better deal.
So,
emotion's not there.
at what price point would you say you need to get a broker, and what price point would you say, that boat's so low in price, I wouldn't, worry about a broker?
I think that has just as much to do with what the brokers are willing to go. Okay. Normally, if you're listing a boat, occasionally you'll find some boats in the 20s that have brokers, 50s to 60s. They start more, 100 or above, because there's a lot of brokers out there that won't touch a boat under 100. Yeah. I'll do that sometimes. It really depends on the boat. A lot of times, if they're smaller and older and harder to sell, here I am kicking business away, but sometimes you can sell your boat privately in areas and other avenues, because you have to look at it and, just from strictly a supply and demand and time usage. Now, that being said, if somebody's, I'm not going to turn somebody down. I'm actually getting ready to work with a compact right now. It's probably a $25,000 boat, but it's a nice boat. Yeah. And it's local. It's something that I can do and help the folks out.
Well,
that's the biggest thing. Is where is it?
It depends a lot on the client, on whether or not the client actually needs the help versus whether or not he's capable of being able to ask the right questions.
Yep. Now, if you're buying and you don't know what's going on, you definitely want a broker.
Okay.
And that way they can, either that or a good friend
Okay.
that can help you through the process, because you can get, it's worse than buying a car. You know, you may get down the road and find out that the people don't have the right paperwork to actually sell the boat.
Yeah.
Especially if they're older and less expensive. It's not uncommon to find boats like that aren't registered in the people's names.
Yeah.
They bought it, but they never registered it. So now you're trying to, I'm trying to buy your boat, but it's registered to John Doe, not you.
I may have one in that category.
There's ways you get around it legally. There's the way you're supposed to do it, but it can take a little while. So you've got to be careful.
Well, they help you with figuring out what boats are going to be a little more difficult to insure.
Right. Oh yeah, there's a whole process of whether you can insure it, where to get insurance, how to get insurance, how to finance.
Oh, insurance right now is a nightmare, especially for older boats.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you need to talk to your insurance when you're starting to even look at boats. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of insurances that won't go back but so many years unless you have a lot of experience. You're a licensed captain, and then they'll
then.
And that starts to get a gray area. So it's
size of boat too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of and it's a moving target. You
Yep.
can call one company now, whether it's Geico or Progressive, are probably two of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
But there's lots of other ones, Markel and some of the other ones that are more focused on yacht insurance, boat
Lords
insurance.
of London.
Lords of London. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about money.
Yeah.
But but age and size and your experience level probably has just a big to do with it. And there are lots of folks that, I want to go buy a 40-foot boat, and great. And my question to it is, what boat have you owned? I've never owned one before.
Yeah.
But I know how. It's like, well, go ahead and it's just like pre-qualifying for a loan at a bank.
Yeah.
Go pre-qualify for your insurance. Call the insurance company. Pick out a boat that you want, a sister ship, and tell them how much you're going to spend, what it is, where it is, and what year it is, and ask them for a quote.
Yep.
And now, don't just ask them for a quote. Actually, you need to ask them for two things. Ask them for a quote, and ask them what will it take for them to write you, to write the policy for you.
Yep.
Because if you haven't had experience within 5 to 8 feet, chances are they won't cover you, or they'll say, we'll cover you, but you have to have 20 days or 30 days with the captain on board before we will let you take it. And then they may restrict it.
I've done several checkout rides where people have hired me to be a captain to take them out to help them get the hours and then sign off so they could turn that into the insurance company so the insurance will actually take effect.
Mm-hmm.
And while we are talking about insurance, one thing that nobody hardly ever checks is when you do get insurance, if you live in a hurricane area, please, please, please check what the stipulations are for them to cover you should there be a hurricane. Because a lot of insurance, they put these little hidden gems to where you have to haul the boat out, or you have to put it on its anchor. It's got to be this, it's got to be that.
What's your hurricane plan?
Yep.
You have to submit a hurricane plan, and if you don't follow your hurricane plan, they'll say your insurance is now null and void. It disqualifies you.
Yep, they get you in the
It's
drive.
an exemption. That's right, yeah. And then especially, so if you have your boat in a marina, and the marina's saying, hey, great, you've got insurance. Well, again, check it.
Yep.
Because if you don't, you expect that hey, your boat's covered and it damages somebody else. They're going to go, sorry, you didn't haul it out.
Yep.
They even have the restrictions on geographical location you can be within certain months.
Right.
Yeah, like you can't be in Florida, or you can't be in Georgia, you can't be in South Carolina, Alabama, Texas. There's a lot of insurance companies that will not let you be in those areas and have coverage.
Right.
Yeah.
So between that and then now you get to, let's say you find a boat.
Which we did. Yep.
Then you talk to a broker, and you let the broker call about the boat, and they're going to find out. When I call, I ask the other broker or the owner, I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yep.
I want to know all of that, and especially want to know the bad and the ugly before survey.
Yep.
That way, because then now I can negotiate on the price for you and get a price set up, and that's going to be contingent on the survey and sea trial.
Yeah.
And then once you go to survey and sea trial, whatever shows up on the survey is now new to them.
Yeah.
And it's new to them, now it's a new negotiation point.
Yeah.
So that's because it wasn't disclosed either knowingly or unknowingly ahead of time.
Now, a survey should consist of two things. One, you should have a general survey where the guy goes through the boat from top to bottom. He takes his hammer out, he bangs on the bottom of the boat, he's checking the top deck for moisture, he's going through the electrical, he's checking the boat out. But you should also get an engine survey, so that way you know the state of the motor, you know the condition of the oil, whether it's got a bunch of metals in it.
Now, how do you know the condition of the oil? How do they figure that out?
So what I do, because I do engine surveys, link below. But no, I take oil samples and I send them to a lab, and they get the results back to me in just a couple days, and it has a complete breakdown list of the content of the oil, whether it has a bunch of iron in it, whether it has a bunch of copper, a bunch of additives. It lets me know what's going on internally in the motor without having to take the motor apart. And so it really lets you know, has that motor been rode hard, and which is really, really critical, because you don't want to go in and buy a boat and think you got a great motor, and then 2 months down the road, you know, you're putting in another $20,000 because...
At least it's a huge aspect of that, especially on a power boat.
Yep.
Sailboat's not quite as much, but still very important.
Yep.
The bigger the boat, the bigger the engine, the more important it is.
Yep. So surveys are never overrated, whether it's the general survey, and a lot of general people that do overall surveys, you know, they have a mechanical understanding, but really you need to separate the difference between an engineer and somebody that...
That's kind of like, if you look at it, your boat surveyor is like your general practitioner.
Yes.
They do everything.
Yes.
Okay, it's your FP.
Yep.
And then if you want to look at the engine, well, now you need to go get you need to get an internist.
Yep.
Or
specialist.
actually, probably more like a heart.
Yes.
You go get a heart specialist.
Yep.
And if you want to look at the rig,
and
inspect the rig, then you go get your orthopedic.
Yep.
So you get your specialized surveyors to do that. And again, this is one where your broker should not be selecting these for you. Now, your broker can give you a list, or better yet, tell you how and where to go find them. And they may give you a list of local ones, but don't limit yourself to those, because one, it's a conflict of interest. That's a big one. If the broker gives you somebody, you know, I refer Scott, but also I have a list of 3 or 4 local people, and here's the list. Scott may or may not be first on the list, and I say they're all good. Go pick who you want. And that's the way it should be, because that way there is no conflict of interest behind it.
That's right.
But yeah, rig inspection is good, especially if the boat's older. A lot of times the surveyor will show, and insurance companies now don't like rigs over 10 years old.
Yep.
They're going to want something done about it, or at least inspections done on a regular basis.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we just had a boat not too long ago. Well, not us, but here in Oriental, a boat came in and had lost its upper shroud on the starboard side.
Right.
And the guy just bought the boat, sailed it for South Carolina to here, and the rigging looked great, according, you know, to him. And he got outside coming into Beaufort, caught a little bit of wind, and that side stay let loose.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because the stainless, talk to us about the difference between stainless and either bronze or metal and how they do.
So, with your stainless steel rigging, it gets thrown in a terminal and it gets swedged. Alright, so when it gets swedged, it's compressed. But what happens is over time you get rain that runs down that rigging and it goes in that cup. So when stainless steel rusts, it expands and it causes microfractures on the inside of that terminal, and then once it does, that it just pulls out like pulling a straw out of a cup. And most rigging now is 3/16 stainless steel, right. But some of the old ones, it's a crapshoot of what metals are in there.
And then you run into the difference between how they corrode, where your stainless does not show corrosion very well.
No.
It all of a sudden you get a hairline crack, and next thing you know it goes, and you look at it and you're like, wow, it's like just a clean break.
Yeah.
And it doesn't show itself until it's almost too late. Most times too late.
And then sometimes your turnbuckles and stuff will be brass that is chrome plated.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so sometimes the brass, it patinas,
mm-hmm.
it gets brittle, and next thing you know, you whack it with a hammer and it just goes,
mm-hmm.
So sound effects.
Yeah.
So
goodness.
So it takes years and years of being on the water to actually start to get a grasp of everything that you're actually looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have that time, then please reach out, get somebody that does have that experience, right.
And it may be more than one person. That's kind of where, like I said, if you get the broker's going to help with the resources in the area to get you in touch with insurance, financing, surveyor, engine surveyor, possible rig survey, and at the same time, we talked about the survey, but there's a second part of a survey that's done that's known as the sea trial.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to go buy a boat, you get to the survey point, and the boat's either in the water or up on the hard. And when you're looking at it as the buyer, you have to put it back where you got it from.
Yes.
So if it's in the water, then you do as much of the survey as you can. You take it, haul it out,
mm-hmm.
do the out of the water portion. It gives you a chance to clean the bottom, clean the running gear, do all that kind of stuff, sound it, make sure there's nothing bad there, which is a whole discussion topic in itself.
Take it for a boat ride.
Then you put it back in and take it for a sea trial.
Mm-hmm.
If it's the other way around, the boat's out of the water, that's kind of a nicer way to do it, in that you get to do everything first. And if it looks good, then you put it in the water. But now if it hadn't been in the water in a while, then you may have some other issues that arise that you expect to see. The stuffing box leaking and other things like that, because it's been out of the water for a long time.
So let's tell them about our sea trial.
No, let's not go there yet. We'll save that for the trip. We'll reach back out to the whole trip on that one. Goodness, that'll make for good stories. We can have 2 or 3 episodes there. But then once you take it for your sea trial, then you put it back out, and then you close later on. So there's again, you've got to schedule the owner, you the buyer, the surveyor, the engine surveyor, and the yard. Because the yard has to be able to pick you up, put you in the water. And there's some yards that won't do short hauls every day. There's some yards that only do short hauls on certain days of the week.
Or the first half of the day.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So you got all the cards and the stars have to align.
And if you are buying a boat, one of the great things about having a broker like Jim is when you're running across these things, if there's things that you don't understand, the broker is going to be your best source as far as helping you to get the answers that you need to be able to make sure you're comfortable with buying your boat or walking away from that one and finding a different one.
Right. Yep. So. Yep. And sometimes it's if you do take a boat to survey, there's a negotiation point after the survey, and you say, well, I'm spending a lot of money on a survey. It's like, yeah, that's right, but it's like a home inspection.
Yeah.
You know, it's worth it to spend the money. You may drop $1,000, $2,000, but at least you're not buying a boat that needs $20,000 worth of work.
Yes.
And I've had a couple clients where we've gone through 2 or 3 surveys before they found a boat that they wanted to get. Now, we try and do as much as we can before the survey.
Yes.
But when when everybody says, oh, the bottom looks great, and you haul it out, and next thing you know, it's blister ridden,
Yep.
That's not necessarily a reason to not purchase it, but that's definitely something that you have to look into further and see about the repairs. Now, with a broker, I hit 2 more things, 2 big ones, I think, that a lot of people say, well, you know, a broker is like a used car salesman.
Oh, they are.
Now, brokers are just like anybody else, just like any other salesperson. There are some people, some brokers that are out there to sell boats, and that's all.
And make that paycheck.
Yep. And I'm a strong believer that you gotta, as a good broker, you need not help the buyer find a boat. You need to help the buyer find the right boat.
Yes.
And the right boat for them, and for that reason. So if you've got a broker that's just throwing you all kinds of stuff and not helping you narrow down what and why, then that's where you need to have a good relationship with that broker. You're going to spend about as much as usually more than what you do on a car, but less than a house sometimes. So it's not an inexpensive thing to take care of.
Well, for me, because I've been on the water for
too many years.
Way too many years. I have had over 9 boats. One of the things that happens when you buy a boat, she's everything you want when you buy her. She's pretty, she's shiny, she's just perfect in length. And then after after a year,
honeymoon wears off.
She just doesn't shine like she used to. You start to get foot disease. If it was just a couple feet longer, it'd be everything I need.
Two-foot-itis.
And so if you're a good boat broker and you're helping a customer to buy what he needs and what he wants, you build a good relationship for life, because nobody buys one and done.
That's right. And you always have to look at resale and selling it back, because you're going to sell your boat.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may take that one and go buy another one. And people ask, you talk about the two-foot-itis. Brokers love that. But I'll look at it and go, don't buy the 34. If you want a 38 or 40, don't go buy the 34 to practice.
Yeah.
Do what you need to, as long as you can get insurance and all that kind of stuff. Go get the 38. Put all the money that you want to in what you want, unless you want to spend a whole lot more money.
Let's see. So we talked about surveying. We talked about doing the sea trial. We talked about building a good rapport with your boat broker. If you find a good boat broker, you got a friend for life. Or I should say, the boat broker's got a friend for life if he does his job like he's supposed to.
Yep.
And what is the cost?
Good question, because a lot of people think, well, it's going to cost me more if I get a broker. And it's really...
because y'all are expensive.
Sometimes we get really lucky, and boat sales go well. But then there's other times where, oh my goodness, we're probably making about $2 an hour.
Yeah.
So it really just depends. And some of the most fun I've had is I've done round trips to Florida and spent 3-4 days in Florida showing boats and things like that, and then went somewhere else, and then
then back to Florida.
Yeah, back to Florida to buy a different one. But no, they're all fun, and you still get to find out. But the seller, when they determine the price that they want to sell the boat for, the seller understands that there's a 10% commission taken out of that. It's normally this is the standard rate, and that is flexible somewhat depending on who you're with and things like that, and what they do and what they offer.
Okay.
But 10% is common, and that's again paid for by the seller of the boat.
Okay.
And so bottom line, if it's listed with a broker, the seller is expecting to pay 10% commission.
Okay.
Now, your selling or your listing broker, the broker that lists the boat, they love having both sides. And I admit I do that too. It's nice to have both sides, and that way there's.
What do you mean both sides?
Both sides. It's just like real estate. You've got a listing broker, and then you've got the selling broker. So the listing broker is the one that lists the boat and puts it out there for sale and does all the advertising and everything else. The selling broker is the one that's working with the buyer, and they come and those two brokers get together to
Battle Royale?
Yeah, to negotiate and everything else. There we go. That was the little voices that you heard earlier today. Now, so you've got the two brokers, and if you're working with just the listing broker, then that can be okay as long as you trust the listing broker, and the listing broker they can divulge. And actually, if you are working with the listing broker, then if you have a good one, you'll get the same treatment.
Right.
Because there's some things that the listing broker will not tell the selling broker. And those are the things that you're not going to get hold of anyway.
Right.
Now, one of the things that a lot of times people know or think they know is how much is the boat going to sell for, or what's the bottom price and all that kind of stuff. I never ask my sellers what their bottom dollar is. I don't want to know that, because that way I'm not diving right down to it to get it sold. And so I'm working for them. And the same thing with the buyer. I don't want to know exactly how much you want to spend. I want to know what ballpark you are to buy. But I don't want to know your top dollar, because then you have a tendency to run up to that. So I'm trying to sell the boat for as much as I can for the sellers and buy it for as little as I can for the buyers.
Yeah.
But so it comes down to the brokerage. And if you say, well, it's going to cost me more, it actually doesn't, because the commission is going to go out anyway. And so it's better to have somebody on your side. And if you go in with no broker, now you're just trying to do the battle all by yourself.
So by using that logic, if you're buying a boat, it's better to find a broker to work for you.
Exactly.
Because it's not costing you anything to have a broker.
Let that broker do some research. Now, when I work with people like that, we'll try and figure out what they like, what boats work. And at the same time, I'm going to be looking, but I do expect my buyers to help with that process. Yeah. Because they've got more skin in the game. They know more of what they want. Mm-hmm. And so, and most of them, hey, go search the internet. Go, let me know what you find. I'm going to go look out there too and see if I can find some other obscure boats or different mixer models maybe. But you can go look, and that's half the fun of it, is going window shopping on all the different websites and seeing what you find.
Well, that's something that I was not, because I've never used a broker, but the reason why is because I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So, and I go tear through a boat and yada, yada, yada. But that was something I wasn't aware of, is if you're just buying a boat, that the brokerage fee, doesn't come out of you.
Right.
So
yeah, you're going to be paying the brokerage fee anyway, so you might as well be paying somebody that's working for you.
Well, I'm saying if I'm buying a boat,
right? Yeah.
Then that doesn't come out of me. That comes out of the seller.
Right. So, now you are paying it, but you're going to pay it regardless.
Yes.
So you're going to pay that amount regardless. And it's either going to go 100% to the listing broker, or it's going to go half to the listing broker and then half to what to somebody that's working for you. Now, a lot of people think that that's what the broker gets, and you say, well, you make a lot of money. Well, got to remember, there's the house behind the broker. Yeah. And that's paying for legal support. It's paying for contractual agreements. It's paying for advertising. It's paying for all kinds of other support. So
paying for your gas that drove somebody around for 15 boats.
There's paying for some of that too. Yeah. So there's a lot of it that goes in there. So it doesn't all go. Even if it's a privately owned, the house normally takes anywhere between 40 and 60%. Of the commission goes to the house. So you're not take usually roughly a quarter
Yep.
of what the commission is.
Yeah.
So 2.5%, 2.5 points. Goodness. So moving forward, now that we've gone through all of those steps, we've gone through the looking, we've gone through the first inspection, we did a second inspection, we did a survey. Our sea trial was really interesting, and we'll tell you about that on the trip back. That had a couple of firsts for me that I've never had happen before.
You know,
and
anything's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen out there. Thank goodness it didn't happen out there.
Right, right.
In the water, but not out there. So you have to look back. May not be the next one because we may, with boat sales, it's in a window, and then we've got to factor in the window of when can we actually go get it.
Yeah.
And so all those factors and looking at the weather and everything else. It's not far, but
yeah,
we're looking at a couple of days on the water that we need a good window for, especially in January. I don't want to freeze.
January is hard. So when we go down, we're going to pick up the boat. We're going to bring all our gear, our GoPros, our drone, or your drone.
Toolbox.
My toolbox, your drone.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to bring it, we're going to go on the outside, right?
It's Wilmington. We could. It depends on the conditions.
Yeah.
A little bit, if we can stay inside at least for the first little bit, and then if it doesn't work, we stay inside. If it does work, we go outside. I think it depends on the conditions.
So we're going to video
Shakedowns
that.
are hard outside.
So we're going to video that trip, and then we'll release that. It may not be next Friday, but it may be the Friday after that. So keep checking in, and it will not be boring. I promise you that.
No.
All right. Well, I think that is it for this episode. What do you think?
Yeah.
Does this one go out before Christmas or after Christmas?
It goes out today.
Merry Christmas.
Yep. Merry Christmas.